Martin.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Good to see you, buddy.
It's that good clapping style that makes it sound more crowded. Yeah.
And congratulations, because just pulling off writing and making a movie, it's an amazing thing.
Thank you. Yeah, it was hard. I should act like it wasn't that hard, but it was terrible.
It is.
I had a rough time. It was hard.
I don't think, when I would love to say I made a movie, but I definitely don't want to make a movie.
Yeah, I feel like that about a lot of things in life, I think,
Yeah.
I want the accomplishment, but the process can be really tough. Yeah, it was cool. I'm a movie fan, I'm a stand-up fan first, I think, and I got into stand-up to do stand-up, but along the way I got some ideas that weren't stand-up stuff. So one of them, I had a couple ideas that were kind of more higher concept, I guess, and I thought, oh, maybe I could make this movie or that, but I sold scripts, I sold the ideas. They gave me money, but they never made the movies. So eventually I realized, all right, I got to just come up with a small idea that I can actually make into a movie. I got to write the script thinking I'm going to actually shoot this. And that's what I did from the beginning with this one. So I got the money. It wasn't a lot, but I was able to make the movie.
But it's what surprised me is I was expecting something different, right? I was expecting, I don't know, something like a little more surreal or wall-to-wall jokes. But it reminded me of the kind of comedies that people used to make, like a very early Albert Brooks type of film.
No, I'll take that as a compliment for sure, because I'm an Albert Brooks fan, a Woody Allen fan, and Hal Ashby, Mike Nichols, Alexander Payne.
Yeah.
It's kind of more grounded. It's a kind of an emotional story, I guess you'd say. So it's a comedy, but it's kind of a dramedy. It's not wall-to-wall jokes and there's no high concept to it. It's kind of simple in a way. Well,
the concept is the human condition, which we're all dealing with. Like everybody who sees this movie was going to have this happen in their life.
Yeah, it's about losing someone. I lost my dad when I was 20. He got cancer when he was 44. He died when he was 46. My mom was widowed at 41. But it's not, I like writing jokes about balloons and chairs and stuff like that. It's not my comedy doesn't usually deal with, I just like jokes. But when it came time to make a movie, I thought I should talk about something emotional, maybe something that I've dealt with. It's fiction. I mean, the story has nothing to do in any direct way with my life. It's not like, hey, this is what happened to me, I made a movie out of it. It's more like, okay, I've experienced loss, and my family went through a grieving process, and I don't know, it's non-linear. It's weird. It's surprising when you lose someone, how it's over 20 years now since I lost my dad, but it's still, you can have a day, if anyone in this room has lost someone, 10 years after the person's gone, you can have a day that's as bad as like a week after they died. It's just like, you kind of think you're better, and then you just never get over it.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when there's always, like, either there's an accomplishment you wish you could share, or just another life thing.
Yeah.
Like, here's a baby, or...
Exactly. I mean, I have 2 kids now, and when my son was born, my first child, especially the first one, I felt the absence, just, you're like, wow, he's never going to know him. And I can't show, you get these weird fantasies where you're like, if I could just talk to my dad for an hour, half an hour, like what could you cover in 30 minutes with someone who...
But you know what else is interesting is, like, when you were little, you didn't realize the adults were missing somebody. You're like, here is reality. We're all here at Thanksgiving.
Right.
But as only as you get older, you're like, oh,
yeah,
this Thanksgiving has changed so much.
Yeah.
Over the years.
And holidays are weird because they're designed, well, I don't know if they're designed, but the point often seems to celebrate and get together, and it's supposed to be a happy time. But then when you lose someone, it's like, those hurt even more.
Yeah.
And like graduation, all those kind of milestones, then they just sting. It just kind of sucks. What's funny is this is audio, right?
Yeah.
It's so funny. They sent me a groomer.
Yes.
I am wearing makeup. I'm wearing makeup right now to do this interview. My hair is like in my eye because they put stuff in my hair. I'm like, what is happening? I mean, why am I groomed for radio? This is ridiculous.
They were worried that you looked a little pale, I think, just as a person.
It's such a close quarters, like he's dying, so we should clean him up a little bit. It's like it just dawned on me. I don't know what I'm doing today that I need to be groomed. I'm a comedian. How much grooming do I need anyway? I had no idea. I saw Demetri. He looked very clean.
I think I think it's because
comic.
they did the still pictures of you. I don't know. That might have been
I guess
it.
they groomed me for the photos out there.
Yeah. But so you were looking around for cameras this whole time. You're
No,
like,
I wasn't.
This
It's
is
just
odd.
that, you know what, I had a hair in my eye while I was giving an answer. And I'm like, why is there a hair in my eye? And I was like, because they put shit in my hair. It's like matted down or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, why'd they put shit in my hair? And while I'm talking, I'm thinking this. You know how your brain just leaves? I'm just like, where am I going here? I was like, oh, because I'm on camera, because we're being, I mean, you know, that's when I started looking around the room. That guy is looking at me. Hey, how's it going?
Well, I wanted to also talk to you about your soundtrack to this because all kind of new artists, right, in this soundtrack, or
kind of, but
Yeah.
well, the main artist had one solo album in 1970, so
What?
he's kind of
Really?
unknown. Yeah, it's called Into Your Ears is his album, and the artist is named Pete Dello. It's actually on iTunes.
Mm-hmm.
You can find the album, and I think there's a re-release. I know it's coming out on vinyl and I don't know, CD or whatever. But yeah, he did one solo album in 1970, and I don't know if there are 5, 6 songs in the movie from that album. He had a band called Honey Bus before that, late 60s band
Mm-hmm.
in England. He's English. But I had this CD, I don't know, for the last decade or something. And when I went to edit my movie, I was trying different music against the scenes. But the budget was so small. We don't have a music budget. You can end
Right.
up spending a lot of money on music if you're going to get like a Rolling Stones song or
yeah.
Paul Simon or something. Like it's expensive. You can't just get those songs. So I didn't know what I was going to do for music, but I liked this artist so much. I just said, let me try these songs. And I found his email address. He's still alive, and he lives in the UK. And I emailed him.
I bet he could not believe that somebody.
Yeah, I know. I
Here's
think
something you did in 1970.
I know.
Can I use it now?
I know. I think he was just kind of like, all right. I think he's a professor now. Like
Yeah.
he's kind of out of music, or I don't think he's performing. So he seemed to not care in a good way, and he was very gracious, generous about it. So he said, sure, yeah, you can talk to this guy, and they gave us the songs for very little money.
And that's amazing. I had no idea that story when I asked that question. But
Yeah.
you are a fan of. We were talking about the Beatles on the way in here.
Yeah.
And that's kind of an era that you're.
Yeah,
going to.
I love the Beatles, and I think late 60s, early 70s music is, I really love it. Lately I've been really into Bob Dylan, which of course I have tons of Dylan albums, but I travel a lot, like a lot of comedians. I'm basically a traveling salesman. It's weird when you do stand-up and you get what you want. You get traveling salesman. That's what you end up with is fly here, fly there, rent the car. If you're Seinfeld or Kevin Hart or whatever, I'm sure you have a jet or something, but not me, man. I'm JetBlue is the closest I get to jet. And so yeah, I got my iPod and I'm just kind of living in my own head with music. So I still love Cat Stevens. I just listen to a lot of the old music. It's earnest. There's a warmth to it, There's plenty of new music that's great. I've just fallen behind now because I have a couple kids and I'm tired. I don't have the time to do shit like that. You know what I mean?
The hunting for music, it is there.
Yeah.
But you have to go out and look for it.
Yeah, I used to when I lived in New York. I felt like I found a lot of music that I still like. But yeah, that when I go back, the Beatles I'm always safe with. It's always going to be great.
Well, that's the thing that these, and I was just talking to little Steven the other day about this, because it's 50 years since Sgt. Pepper, and he was there, and he goes, could you imagine in 1967 if we were listening to music from 1917? It would be
Wow.
insane,
That's
right?
right.
But this, Pet Sounds was just
What an
50
incredible time. And
Yeah.
I've read tons of stuff about the Beatles and the Beach Boys. And one of the books I read, I don't even know if it was a Beatles book per se, but I remember reading this one author talking about when Sgt. Pepper's came out, he was driving across the country with his girlfriend or something, and everybody was playing the album. Because back then, of course, there were fewer media outlets, and I think in a lot of ways it was easier to feel united to the culture.
Yes, you were connected.
So everywhere they drove, people were playing that record, and you just heard it in different restaurants and stores and stuff.
Well, I've had so many of the classic rock guys, all the American and British classic rock guys. And it always comes to this. I was 13 years old, and I'm like, yeah, here comes the Ed Sullivan story.
Right.
Because they all had the exact same experience. That's so hard to do now. You know what I mean? There's
definitely.
not.
It's got to be so surreal to be Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
Or anybody who was in the Beatles. I can't even imagine it. It's got to be weird to accomplish something when you're 20 years old.
Yeah.
that sticks. You're like one of the most famous people in the world, and nothing you ever do, in a sense, will top that.
Sure.
He could like shoot the president or something. And
we're just saying theoretically, because this is the Trump years.
That's right.
It's kind of top of mind for everybody.
But it would say Beetle shoots.
Yes,
Beetle shoots clown or something.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I had heard Paul or somebody who knows Paul say this, that he has, whenever he meets people, he knows like 2 minutes before he gets into what he wants. So like if there's a plumber or something he needs, he has 2 minutes of just letting that person go crazy before he goes, okay, great. Now I need my
what
toilet
a weird
looked
life.
at. Yeah.
That's such a weird life.
Yeah. But that kind of, that music connection, I believe, is in your film, you know, that you're looking for that kind of feeling.
For sure, that was important to me. I love Hal Ashby, and if you think of Harold and Maude, if anybody knows that movie, and I'm assuming you guys haven't seen the movie, so some of this is probably not making sense, but it's in Harold and Maude, Cat Stevens is kind of the musical backbone of that movie, and you hear his voice, it recurs, you know? So I liked that idea, and so in my own way, I tried to do something similar.
I didn't even think about that because I didn't know that this was the one guy, but of course Mike Nichols did that with The Graduate,
Simon and Garfunkel,
as well. And it's always funny to me that it's not attempted more.
Yeah, I know. I like it. I think there's power in simplicity if you can do it. You know, I mean, I had constraints because the budget was so low, and I didn't have a lot of time to shoot the movie. And it's funny. I think there's an impulse to explain or complain, but I shouldn't, because I got to make a movie, and I should look at it more like, hey, wow, I finally got to make a movie. But I think you have the fantasy in your head when you make something of what you think it could be, and that's also what drives you to do it, because you have these ideas. Oh, I'm going to do this and that, and then you get there, and it's just reality is, you know, it's a whole different bag. You're like, whoa.
And you always have this image in your mind that they really said to Francis Ford Coppola, oh my God, this script, this cast, great. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
Where you have to hear that even these films, they had to fight the whole way.
Yeah,
or people
crazy.
say to Marty Scorsese, no, you're bad at making movies. You're like, what?
Yeah.
You know, it happens to everybody.
One time I got to be in an Ang Lee movie that took place in the 60s years ago. And I was in an airport during the edit. While I was editing this movie, I was still doing stand-up. I was going on the road. So I was at LAX, and I just got my laptop back from security or whatever, putting it in my bag, and I hear, Demetri. And I look up, and it's Ang Lee. He's like going through the airport. Ang, hey! So it's like, hey, good to see you. We hug. And then he walked me to my gate with his assistant. This guy was traveling with him. And I said, I made a movie. And he's like, oh, that's great. You know, I said, what about you? He's like, I'm trying to set up my next movie. I can't get the money. And I was like, you can't get the money?
Yeah.
Doesn't Ang have 2 Oscars for Best Director?
Yeah.
I was like, man, brutal world.
He should go in wearing them like earrings and just be, now let me pitch you this film.
That's a really funny idea. Yeah.
But he does. But they don't. They don't go, oh my God, Ang Lee's here. What check can we write for you?
Yeah.
He's got to battle like it's the first time they've heard from him.
You got to hustle. Yeah. You got to sell yourself.
Was that so helpful to you when you were directing to think, okay, I've made films with Soderbergh or Ang Lee? Or...
Definitely.
Yeah.
And specifically those 2 guys. The first thing I ever got to be in, I've been in 7 things maybe. It's not like a big list, but I was in Analyze That. I had 2 lines. The first thing I ever got to do was Analyze That. My scene was with Robert De Niro, which was nuts. I'm not a trained actor. I never had an acting class. Never had a scene partner. So the first thing I ever did was with De Niro. Now, I had 2 lines, but still, it was crazy. And Harold Ramis was the director, so it was great. I got to work with Harold Ramis and Ang Lee, Steven Soderbergh. Yeah, I think back, by the time I got to be in the Ang Lee movie, I knew I wanted to make movies. I also knew it would be hard to get that done, but I thought, let me pay attention when I'm on the set and see like what lenses he's choosing with the DP and how he works with the actors. And the Woodstock movie had a lot of background actors, and so, you know, there'd be some shots were deep. There'd be a family over here and a weird VW, you know, van driving through that part of the shot. So he'd compose the shot. It was cool to watch him start way back. If it were a circle, he's like way out on the kind of perimeter or whatever, and then he's coming in closer and closer, smaller and smaller radius, and then the actors are like the last 2 things he's composing with, being like, you stand here, don't pass this line. I want to see that in the background, stuff like that. I was like, oh, this is cool.
It would never have dawned on me. It would never. What you're telling me is the first time I've ever thought, oh, yes, he has that entire
composition. Yeah,
yes.
It's crazy. Same here. I was just looking at it, and it made me think more visually.
Yeah.
Spatially, and then when you add movement to it, depending on what you want to do, it's really cool. It's just so exciting to get to make a movie and to make those kinds of creative choices. I love stand-up, but it's a different medium. It's it's just a whole different thing. It's very verbal. You can be visual in stand-up, and I try sometimes, but I don't know. There's something just very presentational and verbal about stand-up. And I think my favorites, Richard Pryor is just one of the all-time greats, right? And he does paint you pictures, and he does become characters, but it's still like a play.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a verbally created visual environment, I guess you'd say.
And here, when you're doing a film, like always the thing is show us, don't tell us.
Yeah.
So it's the exact opposite of comedy, where you really want to tell a story that captures people. You have to have an internal life in a film.
I think so. Yeah. And it's weird when you write a script, because if anybody here writes, you write a script or a play, I imagine, but you write the script and you want to get actors to say, yes, I'll do that part. And you want people to give you money to make the movie and everything. So you're writing the script, and it's a sales tool in a sense. In its first incarnation, you're just trying to turn it into something else. So you can write these long paragraphs of description and action, but nobody reads that shit. Nobody, even when I get a script, your brain just skips to, as the actor, at least for me, if I get a script, I skip to the parts that I'm supposed to be playing, my lines.
Yeah.
And I look, okay, do I have to be naked? Do I have to cry? I just say, what's going to take me out of this? And I'm like, okay, cool, I can do all this stuff. But I'm skipping over whatever, the guy walks in the room. But a lot of times that's the movie, is the visual stuff that happens, because it's a visual medium. But it's hard to sell that and to translate that onto paper. People have to trust you, especially as a first-time director. Be like, I have a gag here, I have an idea. I didn't want to write it all out in the script, but we're going to do this, and trust me, we don't have to speak for this part.
Well, as you're writing it, and then you make this movie in your head, I guess, as you're writing it along, but then you get this tremendous cast, and you got amazing people in this. How does that change?
Yeah, I got Kevin Kline to be in my movie, which is great. He plays my dad in the movie, so that classed it up. That made it like a real movie. And Mary Steenburgen plays the realtor, not a big role, but she's in the movie. And Gillian Jacobs, who's done all kinds of stuff. We shot this a while ago, so I actually shot this before the Love series, before the Apatow thing. But now people are like, oh, you saw her in Love. I was like, no, I knew her from other stuff. But yeah, and Rory Scovel, who's a comic.
Great.
He's great. Reed Scott's great. And, it's kind of an ensemble, so some of the folks don't have tons of screen time, but I feel like I tried to make every part interesting.
Yes.
So that good actors would want to be in the movie, And I think for the most part it worked out. I got lucky for sure that Kevin Kline responded to the script, because I don't know him. It wasn't like I could call him up and say, hey, what do you think?
Right.
But my agent got the script to him, and he read it, and he liked it enough, so he agreed to have lunch with me. And I live in California now, so I flew to New York to eat with him.
Well, the thing about Kline is, like, you can see in him what Dean doesn't, right? You can see his heartbreak, and then he doesn't do a lot. Like, he just is a guy who has lost his wife, and the person I think that's last to pick up on that is the other person suffering, the child. It's just heartbreaking to look at him.
Yeah, I think my experience in life has been with my family, and we're a bunch of Jersey Shore kind of Greek immigrant. It's a pile of Greek people in New Jersey, but still, we're like anybody else. And I think, I don't know, there's a lot of times we don't know how to verbalize what we're going through, and you don't even know yourself sometimes, I think, how to even put into words what your problem is or what the thing is. And then at least in terms of making choices as an actor or a director, I like understatement. I'm a big fan of a little bit less than big, showy, if you're on the subway and you see somebody like kind of crying or something's happened, you don't want to look. It's private, but it's interesting and what's going on. But I noticed they're not usually like screaming, I'm upset. It's the struggle to not cry. It's the struggle we have for privacy sometimes in a public domain, even with people we love. I think that's something powerful in that.
Well, I've always had this theory that the best films, even comedies, start with a man in a light depression. You know what I mean? Like he's just muddling his way through, and you know a change is coming because this is a movie. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So obviously there's going to be 2 other acts. But when you start at that place where a guy who's just in trouble.
And definitely, and I know you mean this in the general sense, but I think of Bridesmaids.
Yes.
So let's see like an analog for women that to me is one of my favorite comedies. It was on TV in one of my hotel rooms recently, and I was like, I love Kristen Wiig. I'm a huge fan. And I think that fits what you're talking about too. She's got to, she's working through something here. But there's real comedy rooted in, I think, real emotion.
Right.
Like the laughs are earned in those kinds of movies.
Yes.
It's not just jokes, which I love. I love jokes. But I wasn't in the mood to do that for the first time around. I wanted to see, I guess, if I could give the actors a little more to sink their teeth into. So it wasn't just jokes.
Well, Paul Feig he's got these movies that got tons of jokes in them, but they are real people.
There's
and
heart.
Yeah, and that's where we went back with Woody Allen and Albert Brooks.
Yeah.
Those films that they did, which were, one guy muscling it through the way that you did. I've got an idea. I'm going to walk it around town. I'm going to get people. I'm going to paint the sets. And those films stay with us 40, 50 years after.
Yeah, I'm a fan of both. I've been lucky enough to get to know Albert Brooks a little bit since moving to California, and he's such a funny person. Like he really is funny in his bones, that guy. It's like it's really interesting. He's just different, He's really, I don't know, it's just cool. And I'm a fan, but I've learned when you meet people in showbiz, if you're a fan of them and then you end up at dinner parties with them and stuff, you just have to be cool. You can't.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I can't ask him about Modern Romance every time I see him. I got to just like take what I can get. If he mentions something, I'm like, oh yeah, I think I've seen that. Yeah, I know your movie. I've seen it. And you want to be like, but when you did this, did you?
Yeah.
So you just like play it cool,
But that is true. Like you never get past, as somebody, particularly if you liked them when they were younger, you never get past that freaked out feeling
it's true.
Inside.
And then if you're, and I actually got to see his films a little bit later, but I don't know for everybody here, but for me, things that I liked when I was 12 and 13, 14, around there, now you're talking about stuff that's just seared into your brain.
Yeah.
Now it's like a weird child developmental, so you meet those people.
Yes.
Now that's even weirder because now you're really losing your shit and trying to be, because I think it's such a nice impulse to be like, you changed my life. And it's so sincere, but showbiz is weird because those people have, like you were saying about McCartney, I'm sure
it happens
the 600th time somebody says that to them, it's just hard to be a human being about it and sincerely be like, thank you so much. I'm sure they are grateful, but they're just like, yeah, no, I've heard it. I can't imagine when you've actually moved people like that.
Well, that's what's funny about New York too, where people just give you a nudge and you look over and it's Woody Allen, and you're just like, yeah, I saw.
Yeah, leave the guy alone. Yeah. I know.
But you still have that feeling. Oh, my God, what street is this? This is the street from Annie Hall, and there's Woody walking.
Right.
What's
funny for me is like I never quite got famous, like legitimately. So I'm like under mild surveillance is like the level I've been at for quite a while.
Yeah.
And I'm not chasing the fame thing. So I'd rather, now I have kids, it's cool. I'd rather just be anonymous. It's fine. But every now and then, like I had a flight, an LA, New York flight. We land and the guy I've been sitting next to the whole time turns to me and says, I love your show. I'm a big fan of, all this kind of stuff. I'm like, hey, thank you so much. Then I'm thinking, fucker, you got to tell me that at the beginning of the flight. Did I fart? Did I pick my nose? Like, let me know. You were keeping tabs on me.
Yeah.
This wasn't balanced here. Do you know what I mean?
If
you're Brad
true.
Pitt, it's a different game.
Right.
He gets on the plane, everybody say, hey, I'm Brad Pitt. They're like, hey, there's Brad Pitt. Okay, cool. He knows he's kind of on. I'm just some other dude. And then it's just like, oh, man, come on. You fall asleep, they take a picture of you and shit.
And I think that does happen to people all the time.
I saw a guy doing a selfie thing. He's like across the aisle up a little bit, and I saw him framing the shot with me in the background. I'm like, come on, asshole. I'm just doing my drawings. And I look up in his shot, and he's like, moves it over. Who's taking selfies on a plane? I mean, I guess people are crazy. True. I don't know.
The rollout for this is June 2nd.
Yeah, June 2nd. Yeah.
How are they going to do it? Is it in New York and LA first? Or?
It's in 12 cities the first weekend,
Yeah.
and then every weekend they add a few more until it's like in 160 theaters around the country,
Yeah.
which is cool.
Now, being a comic, it's one way to deal with the audience, but through this process, I guess you're sitting in the audience, watching yourself with the audience.
Yeah.
Right?
Only a couple times.
Yeah.
I've avoided it for sure. It's too
too
much.
strange.
Yeah, I got to see my nose from angles I never want to see, and to watch that with the crowd, I'm just like, yeah. I know what this is about. I had to deal with the edit. The first couple times it was very educational, but I can't change. After it's locked, you can't change it.
Right.
It'd be interesting if you could bring a microphone and sit in the audience when jokes somewhere. You'd be like, hold on, you got to understand, we didn't get the location we wanted. Like, this is actually very good for what I had to work with. You must understand, because you're not allowed to do that. So yeah, it's different. Stand up, there's some at least illusion of control because you can change, you can improvise. I can just bail on a whole section of material. But yeah, this is like locked and loaded and off it goes.
And for the kind of comedy that you're doing, you can't save jokes if it's hurting the movie. Like some movies, if you're just throwing a ton of jokes at it's one thing, but
that's true. Yeah, because it's really, I think the kind of core of the movie is this father-son relationship. The two guys have lost the same person. My character's mom has passed away, I don't know, about a year maybe before the story takes place. So I wanted to make sure that story resonated and felt like a real situation and that those guys were feeling real things. And then I hoped I could get jokes to work with that, but not ever sacrifice the story for the jokes and not have that kind of tail wag the dog in that sense. Even though the comedian in me wants to get the joke to work and go for the joke, the storyteller and the aspiring filmmaker in me is thinking, all right, I want to learn how to tell stories and write good parts for actors so I can make a bunch of these things. And then if I'm lucky, I can make one that's more of a comedy, make one that's more of a drama, and someday write a female lead, or I'm not in the movie at all, or write a story about two women and try to see how to tell that story. Write stories for people of color. I mean, this is mostly white. It's a white dude with his white friends. You start kind of with what you know. Not that I don't have friends who aren't white, but it is funny how insular our lives can be depending on where you grew up and stuff and where you end up. But yeah, it's exciting to think about writing for someone with a different sexual orientation. I don't have that experience, but as soon as you get into trying to write for other people, empathy becomes a really big part of what you're doing. Yeah. Stand-up doesn't teach you that, really. I try to observe and relate and stuff, but I'm writing for myself. I'm up there, I'm just trying to get my jokes to work, and I hope the crowd doesn't heckle me or whatever, get through it. And I want to relate to people, but it's not the same as trying to write a scene where you want the woman to sound like a real woman and not like a dude who is writing what he thinks women say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It might sound trivial, but it's
No, I agree. 100%.
As soon as you try to do it, it's a different reality, and it's very humbling because I don't have those experiences.
But I thought that with Gillian Jacobs, we find out that she's kind of in her own movie.
Yeah.
That where there's like a cross from two, but we could have easily followed her on her path because she was a real person.
I tried hard to do that, and I think it's important for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
And it only helps you if you're the filmmaker, because then you have a richer story, and I think you have better characters. So it's not so purely altruistic, but I do think it just seems like it makes sense if you can do that and think that way. I remember thinking when I was writing the script, any script I wrote, I've thought this, but this one I really felt like I'm going to make this movie. So everything became much more tangible. And one of the ideas I had was, okay, no matter how small the part is, I want to write each character in a way that would make an actor excited to do that part. Mm-hmm. So if they have 2 lines, I still want them to think, I'm going to put this on my reel. Yeah. You know what I mean? If I'm a doctor who just has 2 lines, well, is he a smart-ass doctor? Did he just get in a fight with his wife? Like, what's the story here? He's still a human being, rather than just saying the 2 lines and off he goes.
Well, there are, I think, 2 actors that jump out to me, and both of them are women. Kate Berland, who's an excellent comic, but the scene with her is almost, if we did this years ago, you'd almost put like John Candy in that scene. You know what I mean? Right. You're going to put that bigger than life scene stealer there. How did that come together? Because that's like a short in the middle of your movie.
Yeah. So Kate Berland, if you don't know, is a comedian, She did an episode of a show called Characters on Netflix.
She's amazing.
She's really great. She's very inventive, super smart, a great improviser. I have a lot of respect for people who are really good at improv. People who they seem like a real human being. They're not someone who's going for a joke in a scene, but it feels more organic. It doesn't, sometimes I feel like I see improv and it feels like that's improv. They're doing their game or their whatever trick in their head or whatever. And then other people I feel like, hey, you're really acting. I feel like you're listening and there's a connection here. So there's another woman I thought was very funny is Briga Heelan.
Hilarious.
She's got a show called Great News that came out with Andrea Martin, I believe.
Yes,
on
just
NBC.
recently.
It's a network sitcom. She's the lead of that. She's really funny. So they both ended up coming in to read for the same part, the part that I gave to Briga. Mm-hmm. Briga came in first, and when she read for me, it was one of those things where the actor comes in and it's pretty close to what you imagined in your head. And I thought, oh, great, she's so funny. This is great. But then I still had to see more people, and Kate came in. She did it way differently than I expected, with the same words, but just brought a different. It's like a singer just, having the same song, but bringing different phrasing to it or something. So I thought, man, she's really funny too. And I thought, well, wait a minute, I'm the director. And I'm the writer. I can just fix it. I can just write this other part for Kate. So I had a different thing in mind on the airplane, and then I made it for her because I thought she was so funny. And so I got to have both of them in the movie. So I was really excited, and I thought they were both really funny.
Well, they're both amazing. One of the scenes is almost frightening how scary she goes. I don't want to give anything away, but you're like, oh, shit, he could end up in jail. But that's the kind of fun thing. And then the airplane thing sets up that New York, LA, which is
that a little bit.
kind of underneath the whole film as well.
I mean, that's well-traveled territory for sure, but I'm someone who lived here for 14 years. My parents are from Brooklyn. Unfortunately, I grew up Jersey Shore. I mean, God bless New Jersey, but I don't fit. It's just not for me. I was on the math team. I was on the physics team. I'm from near where the show took place.
And they value that so much in New Jersey.
I was a hero in my high school.
The amount of songs Springsteen has brought up about mathletes over the years.
Exactly. Yeah. My fondness for New York is real, and I thought I'd live here forever. Then I went out there like every other schmuck trying to, chase showbiz dreams. And now I have a house and 2 kids and I'm comfy. So I like it out there. What's interesting to me is a couple things. First of all, the loneliest I've ever been in my life was when I visited LA when I was single. A few times I went out there for meetings and stuff. Within 3 hours, I wanted to kill myself. You can't walk anywhere. You try to walk somewhere, the sidewalk just ends. You're going to get hit by a car or something. It's like highways. And it's beautiful, but it's like you're not participating in it. It's just a strange thing. Now I have a family and I love it because I have my home. We eat at home and we can go to the beach. And now all of a sudden the parks and everything, because I have little kids, it's great. And now New York has become a nightmare.
Right.
Because you have the stroller and there's 90 things that can kill your kid in every spot they're standing. You're like, Jesus Christ, this is so stressful. So it definitely has flipped. But what I found interesting was the idea of the typical, the guy doesn't like LA. But what happens when you fall for someone?
Yeah.
When you go somewhere? In my experience, having a good friend or having a crush on someone or a relationship with someone, it changes your lens. It does change the place. So where LA can start out as this is vapid and, it's just kind of sun-beaten and, I don't know, feels empty a lot. You like someone, and now it's kind of magical and
everything's great.
It's just everything's great,
Yeah.
And certainly New York, I always found it had such range. This city, on a good day, I felt like there was no place better than New York, and on a bad day, there's just no more heartless, fucking brutal, punch you in the neck when you're down. I had the flu once. I lived in a 6th floor walk up on King Street. This was the best neighborhood I ever got to live in. It was Soho, basically. It's like Soho, and it's like King and 6th Avenue. It's right near Prince over there. But my building was a 6th floor walk-up, pre-war, no elevators or anything. And I was, just a single guy alone in my 30s, and I got the flu. And I didn't have any orange juice or anything. It was just one of the worst fucking nights of my life.
Yeah.
It took me 45 minutes to get down the stairs. With my ski coat on, I had to get juice. And it was 2 a.m, and I was like, I'm gonna die in this stairway.
Yeah.
Nobody gives a shit, you know.
As romantic as everyone gets about New York City, New York City does not love you back at all. And once
pounds you.
this song, they don't care.
No.
That New York doesn't care. The beloved restaurant is gone. Okay, next one.
Next, yeah.
Regis is gone. Letterman is gone. The city just goes.
It's
You know,
true.
and you think they would mourn these things, but
I know.
they don't.
No, it's really, it's very humbling. I mean, it's something so healthy about New York in that sense, because nobody's bigger than New York. Nobody's special. You know what I mean? It's great. But yeah, it's on a bad day, it just does not cut you a break. LA is like, it's comfy.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
It'll lull you to death for sure. You're just like, if I've been here 20 years, what the hell?
Yeah.
I've been wearing sweatpants for a decade, you know, stuff like that. So that's weird, but if you keep tabs on it, and I try not to watch the TV that much, to tell you the truth. That kind of, I feel like that's one way to go down.
Well, I don't know how you can turn off Trump. There's a show right now on TV that's just I can't miss it.
I got to say, I was sucked in pretty hard, like a lot of people, looking at CNN, Huffington Post, whatever my little cocktail of weird information to pump into my head every day was, leading up to the election, like the real-time poll returns and everything. Then the election happened, and the next morning I woke up, I was like, I'm done with this shit. I'm not looking at news. And I haven't looked at any news sites since the election. Because I figured I'm going to still know what's going on, because you can't escape it.
Oh, yeah, nothing's happened. Don't worry, you haven't missed much.
The thing is now, yeah, right? Yeah. I know things got better, right?
Yes, it's all working out.
But now I get it. Now I just get my news and conversations from human beings, which is nicer. I'm reading it.
It's so funny that, I'll go after the mail, and you'll see a neighbor, and they'll be like, "Do you believe this?" And I'm like, "Hold on, I haven't seen it yet." But it is a daily thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
strange days.
But I'll go back to the way I started this. That I was surprised in your film, because I don't think you write stand up from all these spots that you write and direct at your film.
Yeah, I did 2 one-man shows years ago. I guess 3. I did 3 one-man shows that I did mostly overseas at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival.
Right.
And those were very personal. This was 2003, 4, 5, around there, 3 summers in a row. And they were very autobiographical and confessional in a sense. Now, this was pre the explosion of YouTube and certainly pre-smartphones, the way we know them now, at least. So I kind of got away with it. The material came and went. And I'm glad that I did it then, because it's not a good fit for me. I don't know. I just wasn't comfortable doing it. But now, having said that, having made the movie, I'm trying to figure out how to do comedy that's rooted, I guess, below the neck a little more, you'd say. A little more heart, a little more emotion. I'm drawn to more thinking comedy, if you call it that. Like ideas. I like the idea. I like jokes because they're things. I could make a joke and then share it with you guys and show you, but it's not about me, really. It might be about my perspective, but it's not my life story. Ever since I heard the word mansplain, I find that a very useful check on anything you do, especially as a straight white guy. I think that's like a real thing. And you could describe a lot of stand-up as mansplaining.
Wow, that's interesting that you would say that, because people come into stand-up from all different perspectives. Yeah. And there's a lot of guys, no matter how old they get to be, it's still kind of street corner comedy.
And I love a lot of it, but it is, I just feel like I want to think about what the audience is going through. And for the movie, that was a big deal for me too. Like, we have so many choices, too much content. There's so much. I feel like you have to curate your experience.
Yes.
If I could see what everybody's into in this room, it would be like nothing would be similar. I mean, maybe it was always like that, but when there was just 3 networks and this many movie releases every year, you could gravitate. Hey, I'm Star Wars, you're Star Trek or whatever. Now it's like, I don't even know half the I mean, it's crazy. So if someone's going to give you their time, I feel like they've opted in. They've made a choice. Yeah. So in return, I want to be like mindful of what they're going through.
Well, just think of specials alone. Even when you started to make specials, there were a couple.
Right.
Now you can be a comedy fan and you cannot keep up with the specials. You can fall 4 or 5 behind it within a week.
Yeah.
It's
crazy.
But that means that you have to be more connected to your audience, I guess, right?
I think so. And yeah, again, I don't know why I'm on such an empathy kick, maybe because of the election and like the way the world feels these days, but it does seem like a simple guiding principle for a lot of behavior in life and experiences is just like, taking the time to think about what someone else is going through. It's like very easy not to do that. But when I do that, I feel less angry usually. And I just feel like a little more like a human being. I'm a little more connected. I go right to, I get road rage. I'm just like every other asshole from New Jersey.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't know. I'm just trying to learn how to, I don't know why I'm shitting on New Jersey today. I apologize.
Well, no one's ever done it before, so you're fine
I know.
with that.
It's another original, another original angle I'm taking.
Well,
I actually had a great time in New Jersey. I think it's just, it's funny when you get distance from where you're from, you see it a little bit differently. And I think when that Jersey Shore show came out, it just brought back a lot of bad high school memories. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm just trying to say is getting to make a movie and working with other people and really collaborating with people. It's just made me think more outside of myself, even though I still love stand-up and coming up with jokes and sharing them with people. It just changes the interaction. So it's not just like, hey, here's my ideas, or, look at me and, please listen to me. It's more like, all right, what's the world we live in these days? What are people going through?
Well, you use one other device besides the music and the dialogue and the character study, and that's these drawings. And immediately, and these are yours yourself, right?
Yeah.
You did these. You know who it reminded me of years ago when everyone got the paper every day, and there was always that thing of going straight for Gary Larson's Far Side, right? Because it would be this one thought that you would even have to figure out sometimes.
Yeah, Gary Larson was my favorite.
Yeah.
A big influence. My two favorite, I think, comedy influences, or maybe there were 3 or 4. It was Gary Larson, Stephen Wright, who I've mentioned many times in interviews, my dad, who was not a comedian, but a funny guy, and Peter Sellers. I love Peter Sellers. I think those were, for me, very early formative influences comedically. But Gary Larson, we didn't have a lot of bookstores in my town, but we had the mall. And there was a B. Dalton bookstore in there.
I remember this.
Yeah, and so they had Far Side.
Yeah.
So I didn't know about the New Yorker and New Yorker cartoons and all this. Later, Saul Steinberg became I still love.
Yeah.
I have lots of his books. But yeah, Gary Larson, if you guys know the Far Side, some of them are single panel. It's like some of them don't even have words. It's just like kind of a scene. And it's like you get to play the next frame or something. It's like taking a frame out of a film and just showing you that one thing. So it's like I think you get to participate in a sense. That's what I liked about a lot of Stephen Wright jokes, was that I got to finish the part that he's not telling me. It's almost like they give you 90% of it and you get to do 10%. So it does feel a little active. Whereas other stuff might be 97%, you only get to do 3%. Or the 100%, it's just like straight up observational, like, remember when you get a wedgie or something, and you're like, yes, I remember that. Thank you. There's no work there, you know? Yeah. I don't know.
What was it that drew you to Peter Sellers? When did that happen? At what age?
Very young, because my dad liked the Pink Panther movies, so he showed us those. And I thought he was a French guy. I didn't know that Peter Sellers was English. And then later seeing, Strange Love and being there, The Party.
Unbelievable films.
Just such if there were a comedy acting genius, for me, Peter Sellers is on the list.
Yeah.
Just because he was all in. I felt like I really believed him in everything that he did. And there was compassion and pain in the guy's eyes. I didn't feel like there was something else going on. Sometimes, and I know too many people in showbiz, so you see your friend in something, so you can look in their eyes and be like, he's thinking about lunch. He's not really in this,
Sellers, I've talked to so many people who knew him, and I don't know how comfortable he was with life when he wasn't performing. But I think it was Cheech that was saying, like, he knew him for years and would call, and he said every time his assistant would answer, this Asian guy would put Cheech through the thing. He's like, after 12 years, he figures out there's no assistant.
It's
ever.
just him.
But he always would answer the phone immediately that way.
That's so cool.
And that's like, he's performing, he's creating worlds when there is no audience for that. Right.
Yeah.
And then
really
he doesn't do a, hey, Cheech, I got you. You know what I mean? It didn't matter to him.
Right. That's so interesting. Yeah. Just a different beast. Yeah, that's interesting. But, so anyway, so I put the drawings in because I do love Gary Larson, and I made my character an illustrator rather than a stand-up comedian because I thought there was something to do there. In the visual medium that you have, this big rectangle you can tell your story on, there's an opportunity. You can put drawings up there. You can make him a painter and have paintings, but there's real estate you can use where you can split the screen, which I did a little bit in the movie, so you see some footage on one side and then the drawing, or you see me drawing and then the finished drawing would slide in or something. And that was cool because I played a more introverted person than I am in real life.
Yeah.
But there's no big range there. It's kind of me, but I changed, like he's an only child, and again, I haven't had a dad since I was 20, so here I flipped it so I could see what it would be like to have a dad as a grown-up and how you're trying to relate to him when you're both going through the same thing. But the drawings were very helpful in telling the story, and when I got to the edit especially, I could have a transition from one scene to another because it turned out I didn't shoot enough exteriors or whatever for that location because we didn't have enough time. But then I could put a drawing and I'm like, cool, that smooths it over. Stuff like that.
And it also, for me, is a movie without judgment of the characters. Each one, and I'm talking about even the smaller characters, the side characters, they're all going through their own thing. But at no time do we go, well, this is the right person and this is the wrong person and this is the good person, this is the bad person.
That feels more like real life to me.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of the movies I like, the storyteller, the director seems to have empathy, or at least thinks about, like they're fond of their characters, or they love them. They care about them. Even the villain becomes a human being. It seems like easy and kind of boring to just make somebody the bad guy.
Right.
Just like, oh, so he's just a lunatic? It's like there's no story there. Is there any why is the guy like that,
Yeah.
And then when the good guy's too good, that's boring too. And I'm certainly not going to make myself the hero in my own movie, I mean, you follow me through the story, but I've got problems. I'm not some great guy.
Yeah, and it probably is true that people think that they're good guys.
Definitely. I tried to do a bit about that. I can't quite get it to work, but it seemed like there are so many assholes in the world because everybody's the protagonist in their story.
Yeah.
But there's some bad guys out there, but they think they're not.
Right. Even Hitler.
Right.
Was like, Hitler was literally like, I give and I give and I give.
Right.
And I get nothing back from these people. Incompetence everywhere I look.
It's true.
But they
look
have
at these outfits I got for everyone.
Everybody looks great. Where do you think that came from?
Right. This will be the takeaway from our whole interview.
Yes.
Anti-Semite, Demetri Martin. My wife's Jewish, everybody, so please relax.
I guess has a movie out called Dean.
Yeah.
But thanks so much for stopping by and
That's
talking.
what we're ending on?
Yes, we're ending. You can't follow Hitler.
That's right.
Everybody knows this.
That's right.
But all right, rather than end on Hitler so people, feel okay about
Okay, thanks.
Is there plans for more, or is this exhausting enough to just say this is it for a while?
No, I outlined another movie last summer, and I realized it was too high concept because even if I got the money to make it, I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I'm good enough yet. I don't quite know how to do what I want to do there. So I put it to the side, and I'm halfway through my next script that's just got a little bit of a concept to it. So it's a little sci-fi element. So I'm trying to slowly work my way up. I hope I get to make a handful of movies. I can see that they're hard to make now, and it takes a while. But yeah, I want to make more.
Now, would it be crossing a line if you were to say to Albert Brooks, hey, maybe we could do something together? Because I'd like to see him working more.
I know, yeah, I don't think it would. His wife's really cool. They're both very nice, actually, and his wife's really cool because she'll encourage. I'll be over there with my wife and at a dinner party they're having or something, and his wife will say, you guys should do something together. And I'm always like, oh, yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah. So
the Desert Inn has heart.
Exactly. And I just try to gently prod him. One time he came and saw me do stand-up in this room in L.A., and when he came to the show with his wife and his son, I said, hey, if you want to come on stage, like, let me know. Just like go like that with your hand or something, and I'll give you half my stage time, 10 minutes, whatever you want. I'm a fan. I just love to see you on stage. He's like, oh, okay. And he never did. And after the show, his wife was like, he almost did. You never know if he really almost did. But it is really interesting, a guy like that, because you're at dinner and he's just doing bits. Kind of like what you're saying about Peter Sellers, where it's like, okay, he's got an audience at the dinner party, but it's not, he'll do a bit, and I'm thinking, God, that'd be so funny in front of a real audience and everything. But I guess he's also accomplished a lot of the things he wants to. So,
but go back and listen to the people that don't know Albert's stand-up. Those early albums are unbelievable.
Really groundbreaking, just really inventive. I think that's what I and a lot of people admire about a guy like Albert, and certainly say what you will about Woody Allen. The same thing. There's invention, and there's something really original. It's really sharing your own imagination. And when you can get that to work for other people, there's something really magical about it.
Well, the album that he did just in the studio by himself is like A Star Is Bought.
Yeah, Star Is Bought.
And he's like this, well, first, congratulations, everyone, for your purchase. Right from the beginning. He's just, you talk about sounding like a salesman, with
he's
comedy.
Hilarious.
And it's just so funny. And the entire album is him making an album and you're listening to it. But this is for the country people. No, this is for the people who like talk radio.
Yeah.
And it's just, if it came out today, you're like, oh, we've got a bright new comedic mind.
I think it's one of the great things about getting to be in showbiz is that you have a chance. It's on you, especially if you are willing to write and try to generate your own material. And if you can give yourself a break when you're coming up with stuff.
Yeah.
And just not be too hard on it. I'm sure we've all heard about that part of the creative process where you silence the critique for a while, or, the critic or whatever. Then, I don't know, something really great can happen. You come up with a lot of garbage, but in there, if you can sift through it, you find something that might be useful and it might resonate with other people. And even getting to know a guy like Albert and some of the other people I've met in my travels, you realize, we're all human beings. It's like, some of them just start with a little more than us, but it still takes work. And I see a guy like that, he's got to work. We all have to work. And it's like, when it actually does work, it's validating in a really different way than if you didn't try and dig deep,
Well, again, I'll go right back to where I started this with you. I think the most interesting thing is I first saw you as a kid doing these jokes, some brilliant jokes, but never thought that you would grow into the performer who would write, direct, and star.
Oh, thanks.
In a film like Dean. It's a long trip to make.
Yeah.
So I'll just say congratulations on that. June 2nd, look for it's going out in 12 cities. Demetri Martin, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks.
It was really fun.
Thanks.
Really great.
Thanks. Thanks, you guys. I appreciate it.